بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم
إن الحمد لله وكفى والصلاة والسلام على رسوله المصطفى وعلى جميع الصحابة ومن والاه ومن بهداهم اهتدى وبآثار أهل المدينة اقتفى وبعد. السلام الله عليكم ورحمة وبركاته. I'd like to share some words with people who have embarked on the search for sacred knowledge. For students of knowledge, talabatul ilm, anybody or perhaps who is interested in the acquisition of ulum ad-din, of the sciences of this deen. I've been asked on many occasions that what should I do if I want to learn, or I have begun to learn, but what should I do, what sciences should I be focused on, or what type of books and things like this. So what I would like to do today is take a few moments and go through some outlines and some parameters for studying the sacred sciences. This is really bi-idhnillah stemming from the hadith that ad-deenu nasiha, that the deen is to give good counsel, it is to give sincere advice. And as the people before me who I have contacted when I was seeking knowledge and have taken guidance from, likewise I would like to play a small role in conveying to others who after me desire to seek this sacred path. First of all, you have to understand that the ulum ad-din are many. Okay, so what we're going to do today is just take a look at some, and very briefly I'll just outline what you should be doing and some examples of how you could be doing that. So let's take a look at Qur'an first. That is a particular area that needs to be focused on. When I say the Qur'an, that will stem that will break into further sciences, or if you like, or efforts. From that, one will be Tajweed, learning how to recite the Qur'an, which really is imperative. It is important that you do throughout your lives learn how to pronounce and recite the Qur'an accurately. Once you've done that, so that is the Tajweed side of things, where you're actually improving and you're practicing as you're going along. The other another field there is Tafsir. I would say start with something basic. Okay, you could begin with something like Jalalain, Tafsir al-Jalalain, popularly by Jalaluddin as-Suyuti. You could also, as another example, there is also at-Tasheel li ulum at-Tanzil, which is an amazing, a beautiful brief tafsir of the Qur'an by Ibn Juzay al-Gharnati, a legend from Al-Andalus, right really amongst the final generations that actually lived in Muslim Spain. He was amongst them and an absolute amazing scholar. He has a tafsir called at-Tasheel li ulum at-Tanzil, and it's quite simple. You could start going through something like that, something on that type of level. And there are many others beyond that. You might want to develop it further. You might want to take a look at things like Tafsir ibn Kathir as an example. I'm just mentioning an example. Beyond that, or with that, you might want to look at something like Ahkam al-Qur'an, perhaps by Ibn al-Arabi. There is also another science there known as Usul al-Tafsir, or the Elm of Tafseer, which we don't really need to go into too much, but there are a few books written on that, on things like if you wish to learn about the doing tafsir of the Qur'an, or the methodology for that, how is it done, and first of all tafsir al-Qur'an bil-Qur'an, and that the Qur'an it explains itself, and then we look at sunnah and we look at other things. It will outline principles of how to explain the Qur'an, but that's something maybe as a beginner you don't really need to get into, but as long as you're just getting the tafsir covered. Moving on, you would have the area of hadith. Now this once again is a vast field really for study. It will break down into several other structures. There will be the aspect of actual hadith books. So I would suggest at this stage perhaps just acquiring basic books of hadith, if you're a beginner, perhaps things like Arba'in an-Nawawiyya, the 40 hadith of Imam Nawawi, perhaps, or Riyadh al-Salihin, or if you want to take it a bit further, maybe things like Al-Adab al-Mufrad by Imam al-Bukhari, or if you want, and these books that I've mentioned so far really to do with etiquettes and good character. If you wanted to kind of study a bit more rulings in there, you wanted hadith, to learn hadith to do with rulings, there is an amazing book known as Talqeen al-Walid al-Saghir by Abdul Haq al-Ishbili, once again a legendary Andalusi scholar who really wrote a small book on hadith. It's just hadith in different sections, which he aimed at really young people and children learning and memorizing at an early age. But that's something, if you want to really get into more rulings, there's things like Umdatul Ahkam, and beyond that a person can go to the actual books, popular books of hadith, whether it's Tirmidhi or Abu Dawood and so on and so forth. But really, as a beginner, I think you should focus on some of the adab, on things like this, and learn that. Another huge aspect of hadith really is going to be looking at the science of rijal, the science of mustalah, which is the nomenclature or the terminology of hadith, and how we understand usul al-Hadith, okay, the theory behind hadith. For this, like, how do we know? You've all probably heard the terms like sahih, da'if, mawdu, this hadith is this, or the chain has a problem. What are they talking about? Well, usul al-Hadith is where we learn. You can begin with something basic. I would advise like al-Bayquniyya. If you begin with that, that will be quite good as a beginner text. It is done in poetry, but there are really some good commentaries out there and explanations, and I believe there's quite a few in English as well which are available. Beyond that, I would say actually just slightly ahead of that, there's a very good contemporary text known as Tafsir Mustalah al-Hadith by, I believe it's Dr. Tahan. Very well explained type of Mustalah al-Hadith or Usul al-Hadith book. These words are synonymous, by the way. When people say Usul al-Hadith or Mustalah al-Hadith, they're talking about the science which concerns itself with the theory of Hadith. Moving on from Hadith, we now have the Shari'a. And to study the Sharia, this once again will break into many aspects, looking at things like fiqh. Okay, fiqh is reasonably synonymous with Sharia generally, but fiqh, people tend to understand from it more the worship section and things like this. So it will mean, how do you cleanse and purify yourself, how do you pray, the pillars in the sense of Saum, Zakat, Hajj and so on, how do you buy and sell and marry and divorce and inheritance and the criminal justice system, and everything is really in there in fiqh. What I would advise is begin with an early text, something very elementary. So if within the school of Medina, like let's say something like the Ashmawiyya, which is really will just cover Tahara, Salah and Saum, how to purify yourself and pray and fast, and that's it. And this is really available in English. There are commentaries of it available as well, explanations. I've actually done an explanation of it in 6 audio lectures, a commentary of this text, which is available as well. So I mean, if you contact me via Facebook, I mean, or that should be available. Likewise, other than that, I would say some people would say something like maybe study Matan, the Ibn Ashir. You could do that, or there's some other texts like Al-Izziyah, and that's being taught in a few places. I would say it's also possible to I mean, if you've learnt a certain amount, maybe one of those, you've dabbled in a few texts, a few early texts, you could move on to something like the Risala after that. The Risala, once again, is an amazing text, one of the early summarized texts which appeared on the globe. It was written by Ibn Abi Zayd al-Qayrawani over 1,000 years ago, and it does cover it reasonably covers a breadth of the whole thing. So beginning with Kitab al-Tahara, going right through, the whole transactions up until adab, etiquettes as well.